Welcome, everyone. We are live today, and it is a glorious, wait, what are we? Wednesday. It is Wednesday. We're in the middle of the week, okay? We are in the middle of the week, and I trust that you will enjoy this beautiful day. Now, as I always say, I won't keep you long. So, the distance, talking to a lovely person, and uh, the distance the distance between two things. So the distance between where you are right now and where you're going, because we're always moving, yes? So when we say, well, I'm changing my life, but I keep doing the same thing, why am I not changing? No, pay attention for the distance. There is a pattern, okay? There's a pattern that happens. So you say, well, I want to change in this area, but I've been trying for weeks and nothing is happening because you're busy looking at the problem. But if you watch where the distance is, you will find two things. You will find either you are, let me see if I can like how I can put it for you. You do the thing you want to do, you live the way you want to live, you're in the state you want to be in for 8 weeks. 8 weeks. Something happens and you go back to what you used to be for 3 weeks. You snap out of that and you go back to where you say you are, and you're in it for now 6 weeks. And then something else happens and you go back to where you were for 2 weeks. If you look at that pattern, that rhythm, you will notice that you are living your life the way you want to live it more than you are going backwards to the old habit. So this is why one must persist in doing the new thing, because there's going to be a distance between where you are and where you're going. And if you can recognize that you are living more where you want to than going backwards, you'll realize that you're living more of what you want than not, all by the distance between those 2 points. Let me see if I can break it down a little bit further for you. So you have been doing what you want to do and living your best life for 9 months. Something happens and you fall backwards for 3 weeks. Do you see what we do? We look at the 3 weeks as being a failure instead of the 9 months as being the success. You've been living in your ideal way for 9 months. You only fell backwards for 3 weeks. Why? Because your memories don't leave you. And sometimes when you get really relaxed, we tend to forget ourselves sometimes. Not like in forget yourself, but because we do it, or that we've done it for so long. You've done this old way for years. And now you've been living the way you want to live for 9 months, 10 months, a year, and something happens and you fall back for 6 weeks. It's not the fall back for 6 weeks that is a problem. There is no problem. Because the more you persist, you will stay in the state habitually now because you keep going back to it. And that becomes the state now, the set state, your home state, as Neville calls it, your habit that you go to, right? You will go to that. And the next thing you know, you've been living it for 2 years, 3 years, and what something happens, you fall back for 6 weeks. Do you see how you've changed your life by being persistent? I trust that that makes sense. So the next time you look at your life and you say, oh, but I've been trying to change and it doesn't feel like I am, look at the distance. Are you living more of who you are? Yes, you are. And living less of what you were. They still will come up. The past will still come back. Because you have not lost your memories. And so sometimes a memory will arise, and depending on if you catch yourself or not and you indulge in it, that's what sometimes, like Lot's wife, can hold you in this suspended hypnosis for a minute there, and you're like, ah, I'm stuck, but you're not. As long as you are aware of what you are doing. And this is why also learn that rhythm. Learn to look at what you're doing. If you notice, let's go the other way now. If you notice that you say you are wanting to change, and you are spending more of your mind's time in the past of what you used to be than going forward, well, then what are you going to do? Are you going to beat yourself up? Oh my God. No, recognize that the past is just a habit. That behavior that you're doing is just a habit. And that's why you're there, because it is a habit that's set down. This is why we persist in living the way we want to live deliberately, as opposed to going back to the way we always were. It is natural to go back to the way you always were because that is the habit. But you have to persist in the new way to make that the habit. So if you will pay attention, you will see the distance between the two things. You will see, baby, you will notice the distance between the two. You will notice the distance between where you say you are versus where you've come from. So if you pay attention to that, you will see your progress. You're not looking at it. Hi, furry. You're not looking at it to judge it or to beat yourself up. Oh my God, I keep making the same mistake. No, you catch it and you say, oh, there's that old habit. That's all right. The good news is I've been doing the new habit more, where now you practice. And that's how you count your progress, by looking at where you are most of the day in your mind's eye. Are you complaining most of the day, or are you living deliberately most of the day? Remember last night in the lecture, there was one sentence: trust in the immutable law. Trust it. You reap what you sow. That's the simplified way of saying the immutable law. When you realize that that is where your trust is, when you realize that that law never changes. Well, it will create change in other things, but it does not change itself. Catalyst, right? Science 101. Is it chemistry 101? Yes. Um, but that's how you pay attention. Look at your life, not to judge it, not to compare. We don't compare. I know why we do it. We're human, right? And we want to look at somebody and say, well, if they did it, I can do it. Oh, but look at how easy their life is. No, no. When you examine yourself, you will see the distance that you have come versus the distance you have fallen backwards. You'll see it. And without judgment, you will know, oh, I'm doing it. And you begin to celebrate more and more your accomplishment of staying in the state. And staying in the state really is truly trusting the immutable law. If you want to think about that for a moment, sometimes we're always just focused on the state, but what if the state is actually the trust in the immutable law? If that is where you live from, the knowing that I will always reap what I've sown. So I will deliberately choose my seeds, my mental seeds, my physical seeds, my emotional seeds. I will choose them all. Why? Based upon the harvest I want to have. If you want to eat blueberries in the summer and the fall, you're not going to plant raspberries because you'll only get raspberries. So too, if you plant the seeds of complaining and bitterness and gripe, what kind of people do you think you're going to encounter? Hmm. So that's why I say, if you practice the precepts, the principles, the law, you will pay attention and you will see how far you've come. I was telling somebody yesterday, 98% of your progress is based upon your understanding of what you have been doing. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you're in the dark. But when you have that spark of comprehension, it's like, oh snap, that's what I'm doing. Where do you think the 2% remaining is? Staying faithful to the new you. That is considerably simpler than trying to sort it out, trying to see where you are. No, the light of understanding is the biggest part of anything we will do because you will see clearly what you are doing. You just want to see it. You just want to be aware of it because when you are aware of it, well, now you can say, this is good or this is not good enough. So I'm going to practice my persistence in the direction I want to be in, which is what? That depends. What kind of life do you want? What kind of life do you want to experience? We'll plant those seeds in your mind's eye. Remember what step one was? To get a clear mental picture of what you want to experience on the outside. Get a clear mental picture. Why? Because the universe is mental. And as within, so without. Whatever that mental picture is. Remember, I told you this analogy, and this has a lot to do with looking at where you are now and what you're doing compared to where you've fallen. You, listen to it. When you have a clear mental picture of what it is you want to experience in the outside world, you get a clear mental image of it. And there is this great artist that will draw it for you and give it form in the outside world. So if you remain consistent and persistent in holding that mental image. Now, how do you hold the mental image? You hold the mental image first by getting it. Money, car, relationship, whatever. Doesn't matter. You just hold it without judgment. Oh, I don't know if I deserve it. It doesn't matter who deserves it. Listen, if Nikola Tesla had the attitude of humanity does not deserve the access to my knowledge, you think we'd have cell phones? You think we'd have tablets and iPads? Nah, we wouldn't have any of those things. But he gave his knowledge without judgment. So think about that, right? This is why without judgment is so important because there's no qualifier other than, oh, look, you're here. That's your qualifier. Oh, you exist. Because if I say here, you think just Earth. Nah, wherever you are, you know that you exist. That is your qualifier. You exist. So hold that mental image in your mind by understanding the principle, the precept that says that image on the inside that you think is invisible and formless and shapeless. Hold it steady for me. Trust that I will bring it outside to give it form. Well, you imagine the snowman before you build it in the backyard. So you go outside and you do what? Mold and shape the snowman the way it is in your mind's eye. So you hold the image in your mind's eye of who you say you want to be. And you trust that it is so. Not because I better have faith. Trust. And here's the grace. Here's the grace. Here's the mercy. We see the evidence of as within, so without. We see the evidence as above, so below. We see the evidence of this all day, every day. That is the grace and mercy that you don't have to believe blindly. You see the evidence that if you plant apples, you're going to be eating apples, and you better find a way to make all those apples into something because you're going to have so many apples. So you see, we experience as within, so without every day. So the trust part is the easy part because that's the grace and the mercy of God to make it easy for us. Oh, look, I can see that. Every time I go outside and I see that tree in the front yard, I know what seed was planted. I don't need to hope that I'm right. I know that I am right. I know that what is planted is what will grow. So that's the part. So when you hold that image in your mind's eye, the way you hold it there is to know that that image is inevitably going to take form. And you walk in it day in and day out. And all it does take is practice. Why? Because we say, but Angela, that tree in the yard that has grown, that was planted, but that's obvious. That's like totally obvious, man. I'm talking about paying bills. So don't talk to me about fruits and vegetables. The same principle applies with fruits and vegetables as it does with money. If you look into your mind's eye and it is devoid of money, because every time you look there, you say you have none. Every time you look into your bank account, you say you have none. That's the seed. None. You planted nothing. But what? Lack. You have to reap it. So the image in your mind's eye is, what do you want to see in your bank account? And the fact that you know that what is within will be without makes you excited. It makes you feel a particular way. And when you feel that way, well, then you begin to see the distance between where you were looking at an empty barrel and now you're looking at something that's full. You see the distance between those two. And when you see that distance and you say, oh, I spend more time looking at a full barrel than I do an empty barrel, well, then keep persisting in it because every vision has its appointed hour. It will blossom, it will flower. If it be long, wait. Look at look at winter. I forget. JL told me that it's still fall because December 21 is the beginning of winter. And I'm looking out the window and I'm like, well, my apple tree still has a little bit of leaves on it, but the backyard is covered in snow. So, according to my backyard, it's winter. Right? So you're look at it. Where and how do you want to experience life? Hold that mental image, not hostage. You know how you hold it hostage? I really, really want this, but I don't think it's possible. That's holding it hostage. And it's like you dropped your seed in amongst the thorns. And they might spring up, but they get choked out by those thorns. Hold the mental image with the trust that as within, so without. As above, so below. Hold the mental image according to that what is within may be invisible. Seem for your change. You want to stop complaining? See yourself as one who is joyous in your mind's eye. And that joy will emerge all on its own. So that's what I'm trying to show you today, that distance. That distance from between where you've come from and where you're going. This is the whole purpose today, that distance. Because sometimes when we see that distance, we don't look at it the way we should. We look at the distance as, oh my God, am I not done yet? Am I still here? Am I still struggling with the same thing? But no, look at the distance. Where did you start? You were in it for 6 weeks. You could hold that image for 6 weeks in your mind's eye, and then you let go of it for 2 days, 3 days, a week. Get up and go back to the image. You see, the struggle is between the old man, which is your old habit, and the new habit you are creating. The old habit has been set down. Why has it been set down? Through time and practice. That's how it's been set down. Time and practice. So for the new man, you've got to be in the new man with time and practice. You see, that's the difference here. This is where the comprehension comes in. You don't look at your life like, oh my God, I'm failing. I can't do this. I've been struggling too long. No. It's just that the old habit has been practiced longer than the new one. So you must persist in doing and being the new. Because how did you get there? Time and practice. So how will you get out? Time and practice. You know? So this is where your joy comes from. Knowing that you are not victim or captive to a habit. A habit only remains as long as you are going to keep practicing it. So this is why you determine, what do I want to be? What is the new habit? We always say, well, humanity, we are creatures of habit. We can't be creatures of anything else. It is the principle of rhythm, ebb and flow, pattern. That is habit. You do the same thing the same way every time. Just like I get up every morning and tell you the same thing the same way every time. It's a habit. So when you find yourself to be struggling, understand what the struggle is. The world is not against you. Understand that the struggle is the old habit. If you want to give the old habit a personality, sure. The old habit is just there because it's been there longer. That is it. It doesn't have any power. It's just that you've been doing it longer. That is it. So now, if you get up and you hold the mental image of your new habit and you begin to practice that, well, then you will be encouraged to know it's just a matter of time. That's all. That's what you'll know to be true. And this is what I meant when I said earlier that the grace and the mercy of God is just so profound. You look around and you see any kung fu master, right? How'd they get to be a kung fu master? Time and practice. In order to have that time and practice, you have to have the mental image. How else would you know what you're practicing? You have to see it. Your sensei comes along and says, okay, here's the move. Remember, wax on, wax off. But we get frustrated. I'm not learning any kung fu. I'm just waxing on and waxing off. Aha. But what did the teacher do? He said, okay, fight. And he said, well, I don't know how to fight. And then when he came at him, he said, wax on. And he waxed on. He said, ooh, wax off. And he waxed off. He goes, oh my God, I know karate. Time and practice. Time and practice. So long as you hold the mental image, you will dedicate the time and attention and the practice to it. And that is what will give it to you instead of holding on to the fretting and the judgment of you're not changing. If you're busy saying, I'm not changing, are you practicing change? I mean, I'm just asking for a friend. Right? So, I trust today that it makes sense for you. Yes? I trust that it makes sense for you and that you will continue to trust in the immutable law because you see it all around you. You see the Kung Fu master, and you know well that it was only time and practice that got him to where he was. So then that should tell you, well, if I do time and practice, I will do the same thing. So you see, you trust the principle already. You just need to see that you trust it. So then you trust your change, right? Now you trust your change. Let us welcome everyone into the space, shall we? Yoda Green, how you doing here on Twitter? It's good to see you. Now, who's here on Fanbase? My Melanin is here. Miss McQueen is here. Joaquin is here. And the lovely KZ is here also. Now, who's here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch? Tennille Haskins. Well, thank you, dearest. You're welcome. Choppy Anims. I see you. Hey, Cyber. Furry Bella. Bewee. Brandon. I see you. And for the others who are here, I see you too. You may not have made yourselves known to me in the chat, but I see you. I just don't know who you are, so I can't say who you are other than, hey, how you doing? So anywho, I trust that today made sense for you. If it did not, slide into my DMs and I will do my best to expand upon your question. Okay? But to just summarize before we chime in, Chicken is upstairs. Well, listen, he was already awake at the crack of dawn this morning. He was all in that message I was sending to somebody. He was like, ooh, ooh, I got something to say. And so he was singing too. But anyhow, the recap is this. The change that you are making, you do not have to force your change. You just need to hold the mental image of the change. When you hold the mental image of the change, there is a certain amount of energy that you get, a feeling that you get, an inspiration that you get, and then you will act according to that mental image. And when you act according to that mental image, you begin to see the external take shape. As within, so without. Why? Because you don't have a choice but to reap what you have sown. Now, Neville Goddard says, if you have planted a seed that you're like, oh, oh, wait, I didn't want that one. Get in the mind's eye and change the image. Now, you still may get a little bit, you still may get the remnants of that thing you didn't want, but that's only the remnant. Hold fast to the new. He calls it revision. So you look at that seed and you go, oh, I didn't want that. I want this one. Well, then give your attention fully to the new. Why? Because things wither and die for want of attention. It is your attention. You're looking at it. You're speaking of it. That's giving it life. That continually keeps it in your life. So recognize what you are doing, because that is 98% of the work. Recognize that the more you complain, the more you will have to complain. Because you're holding the image of complaining. Are you not? Because you can see all the things you're complaining about. In your mind's eye, you're holding the image. So what are the things you want to give thanks for? What are the things you want to see? Hold that image in your mind's eye. And in due time, with your accompanying practice of holding it there, you too will learn the art of wax on, wax off. We think the work that we do to get ourselves where we want to be is hard and is a struggle. No, it is just the understanding, practice, and time. Anywho, let us get the chime for a few minutes. And as you hear the chime, just breathe. That's it. Just inhale and exhale. Don't try and stop your mind, because that would be madness. You can't stop it. You can't stop your brain. It's supposed to think. Just simply inhale and exhale. And the more you do that, the more you do it. Just do that, nothing else. Let's get the chime. For some of you, you have daylight where you are. Oh, Bewee, you are so welcome, my dearest. You are so welcome. But as are you in mine. You are a light in my life. Indeed you are. Yes. Some of you have daylight, so we will play the daytime chime. It's dark outside for me. So I was just going to play the AM chime, but this is the daylight chime. Oh no, this is the evening chime. I lied. We'll play it anyway. Countdown initiated. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Much love to each and every one of you on this glorious Wednesday. Go forth and trust in the immutable law that as you sow, so shall you reap. It is a comfort, is it not? Much love to each and every one of you. Peace out. Twitter is closed. YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. Oh, you know I love you. Well, you know, be we. Well, you you pulled the answer out because you were the one with the question. So you know, it is what it is. The immutable law is always at work. So that's the mercy and the graciousness of God, isn't it? Yes. I love you all. YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. I'm coming, fan base. Hold on. So I'll see you tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're reading the next book. We did At Your Command. We did Your Faith is Your Fortune. Now the next one. We'll do that one. I don't know which one it is. I gotta go look it up in the sequence for Neville Goddard. But I love you, and I'll see you tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to fall asleep with us, right here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, fan base. Much love.